welcome to my podcast. I am so excited that you have decided to join me today because I have a really important topic. So if you are a self-employed birth, postpartum or breastfeeding worker, you are in the right place. If you've ever found yourself sitting with an opportunity in your business and you've been sitting there thinking, this looks really good on paper, so why does it feel off? Or you found yourself saying yes to things and then feeling a knot in your stomach afterwards, then this episode is for you. Because one of the things I see all the time with birth workers, and I've had it myself as well, is not a lack of passion or skill or commitment. It's a lack of real clarity when it comes to decision making in our businesses. And that's not your fault. Most of us were trained really well in supporting families, in holding space, in working ethically, and in compassion, but very few of us were taught how to anchor a business in something deeper than just strategy, pricing, or what to do on Instagram. So today I want to talk about your mission, your principles, and your values, and how you bring that into your birthwork business. What they actually are, not the fluffy corporate version that's just on your website to make people feel better or look good, but why they matter far more than we often realize. And this isn't about branding. It's not about positioning yourself. It's not about writing something that sounds nice on your website. And it's definitely not about having everything figured out. It's about having something solid to come back to when you're being pulled in 100 different directions. Something that helps you decide what to say yes to and what to say no to, and how you want to show up in your work. I'll also be drawing a little bit on the ideas. So just to be clear, this isn't an episode on how to write your mission or your values. I've covered that in your Birth Business membership. But what this is about is understanding why they matter in the first place, especially in this work that is so values-led and emotionally charged. So if your business has ever felt a little bit misaligned or overwhelming or just a bit noisier than it needs to be, then let's slow it down and let's start at the foundations. Because this episode is about understanding what mission, principles, and values actually are and why they really quietly shape everything that you do in your business. So when we're not clear on our missions and values, what can happen is that we end up saying yes to things that might seem like a good opportunity or feel good on paper or look good on paper but feel wrong. Or it might be that you find that you're kind of reshaping yourself to fit into opportunities, even though that's maybe not the way you want to work. And it can start to feel like you're disconnected then from work that you felt really called to before. So when we start to look at our missions, our principles and our values, it's to help us to be able to use it as a decision filter. So when I talk about your business mission, what I'm talking about in really, really simple terms to start off with is looking at who you support, how you support them, and why this work matters to you. So it's not just a description of the service. So who you support and how you support them might sound quite descriptive. It's more about the identity and the direction of your work. It's the driving force behind your decisions. It's a North Star that you can focus on, and anyone that you choose to work with. So if you bring on any employees or you do collaborations with other people, then this is the North Star of the guidance that you can use in the things that you do and how you run your business. And when your mission is clear, it just helps really keep everything else a lot more aligned. So your services, your marketing, your decisions, and the direction that you're going. Your mission statement is really personal. So you want to kind of free write and just think about different things. But like in my birthwork business, my mission statement it's quite detailed and it's quite long. So mine is that my mission is to support parents through evidence-based, practice-informed, and culturally based education alongside respectful and compassionate care. I aim to help families to feel confident, informed, and supported to make decisions that align with their values and needs while honouring their autonomy, dignity, and lived experience. My work is informed by a commitment to cultural respect, anti-discrimination, human rights, and social justice in everything that I do. So you can see there's a lot of words there that we can pick out when we're looking at the values as well. So evidence-based, practice-informed, culturally based, culturally respectful, anti-discrimination, human rights, social justice. So it gives you an idea of what I mean about your mission statement being about your identity and not just about something that looks good on a website. And it might seem like a bit of a silly exercise to do, or something to even think about, but it really does help you then when you go to make this decision. So you can go back to your mission statement, use it as your North Star, and say, well, is this opportunity that I'm being presented with, is this actually does this fit with my mission statement and my values? So your mission statement can be just a couple of sentences, and then your values can be a little bit more than that. So when we think about your values, what we're not thinking about is like your personality traits. So it's not honest, trustworthy, and it's not just silly aspirational buzzwords. They are the actual principles that guide how you work. What kind of came up for me when I decided that this was something that I actually needed to put on paper was really recently. I was listening to Son Covey, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, I think the book is called. And he was talking about your principles and for me, this is your mission and your values. And he was talking about how your principles in life underscore everything that you do, or they should do, or else you can't be a highly effective person. And for me, I know that I have lived this. I know that my values, my principles are very much part of everything that I do. And I know that I believe that they matter specifically, even extra in birth work, because we can come up with ethical dilemmas about maybe some of the work that we decide to do, or the opportunities that we decide to take, or the way we decide to market ourselves. And we can be uncomfortable with some of those things, and some of them are out of fear, and some of them are because they're not aligned with our values. And we might be offered collaborations or brand deals or different things like that, and there might be something in our gut kind of saying, I'm not sure whether I could take this, but then the logical brain is saying, but this is a really good opportunity, don't be silly. And what we don't want to do is not take opportunities based on fear, but what we also don't want to do is take opportunities that are feeling that way because they don't sit right with us, actually. And we don't want to push that away. We don't want to take away that feeling completely. So having a mission statement and values means that you have something that you can actually go back to and look at and say, okay, I'm feeling a bit funny about this decision. Is this in line with my mission and values or not? And it just gives you a really better way of being able to say yes or no. Because if we ignore that little voice inside and we go forward with the opportunity, and one or two things is going to happen. Okay, so we'll either go into cognitive dissonance. So cognitive dissonance is where you convince yourself of something to make yourself feel better. So if I took up an opportunity that didn't sit completely right, and maybe it was because I felt it was a little bit ethically misaligned, and then I did it anyway, then I might tell myself, well, okay, I'm being too sticky on this, actually, and I'll convince myself of all the reasons why it was okay for me to do it. And I see this a lot in the lactation world, where we see a lot of people promote like working for formula companies and ignoring the WHO code. And I feel they've convinced themselves that there's a good reason for them doing this, but I'm almost confident that a lot of them at some stage had a little thing in their heart that said, I'm not sure whether I should do this. But then when they did it anyway, you have to kind of convince yourself. So either that happens, you convince yourself that it's okay, or you just start to feel really, icky about it and regretful, and that can be overwhelming, and it just kind of doesn't feel nice. So this has come up for me quite a lot recently, where I have really, really embedded values in my business, in my life, in how I do things. And this really, I want to tell you the story actually of how this came about for me, of understanding kind of organizational values at the actual level where they mean something, not where they're a nice mission statement on a website. So I worked for a homeless charity. And when I joined that organization, part of the induction process was being introduced to the values of the organization. And so one of those values was stewardship. So stewardship means that we would make sure that the money that we were getting from the public or from the government, that money was spent well. Okay. So it meant that we were always, when we were using funds for the services that we worked in, that we would be thinking about, like, is this money well spent? Is this going to benefit the people we're here to benefit? Is this a good use of our funds? So that's what stewardship is. And another one was about quality. So the person who the person who founded the organization, she had a saying, and she said, we don't give broken cups to broken people. And I know we wouldn't use that language around homeless people anymore, but what it meant was that we were never settling for good enough for the people that we looked after. So we literally wouldn't have chipped cups in our coffee shops. We wouldn't have, secondhand clothes or donated clothes that weren't in really, really good condition. Most of the stuff that we gave out was brand new. So we would buy socks and jocks and towels and things to give people. So it was about, like, just because someone's having a hard time doesn't mean that that's good enough for them. It was about having quality services for quality people, because everybody is a quality person. So when I worked there, this was filtered through the entire organization, in everything that we did, in our team meetings and decisions that we made, and how we treated our customers. And I really got to learn what working for a values-driven organization meant when I was working there. And that really sits with me now in how I run my own organization. My own organization is just me. But it's really important to me that I have my set of values that work for me. So, for example, one of my values is around human rights and social justice. I mean, you can probably tell, considering the background I've come from. But that means when I've been offered things that go against those values, that I have declined them, even things that would be very beneficial to me as a business owner. So one example was I was offered to speak at an event, and the event was based for mothers and mothers in business. So it would have been beneficial for both my businesses, for my birthwork business and for my coaching of birthworkers businesses. And I hadn't attended any of these events because of where they were hosted. So they are hosted in an organization that supplies food to the direct provision centres here in Ireland. So they have a brand of really, really fancy cafes, and they also run the food supply into direct provision. So direct provision is something in Ireland where people who are waiting for their asylum claim for refugee status and where they go and live. So a lot of people are against direct provision. I'm against direct provision. I don't think it helps in their human rights. And what's going on in these centres, and the reason why I won't associate myself with this organisation, is that they provide really, really crap food for the residents, like slop. Disgusting. And yet they have this brand of fancy cafes. So they know how to make good food. They just don't bother for the people that they're serving. And to me, that is completely and utterly ethically misaligned. So I won't eat in that cafe. So I wasn't going to go and speak in that cafe that is sponsored by those people. But I did sit down and think about it. I was like, Niamh, are you being a bit too much here? Like, if you hold everyone to such high standards, you're not going to get any work at. And that is something that I have to deal with, because it's something that comes up for me all the time. But that's who I am, and I live by my values. And I know that if I compromise my values to do that one of those two things would happen. I would convince myself that it was okay for whatever reason, or I'd start to feel really crappy about it. And I don't want to feel really crappy about my work. So I'm not saying everyone has to have the same values as me. I'm just trying to explain what living your values means and how it can help you make decisions in your business. And it can also help you make decisions to say, yes, that person is a brilliant collaborator with me. So another one, I had someone reach out to want to be a podcast guest, and I had a little bit of a peek at their profile. She seemed pretty cool, had a look. She had some videos, anti-ICE and anti-Trump and anti the things that are going on around whatever's going on in America. You know what I'm talking about. And I was like, okay, so she aligns with my values. I get a lot of emails from people wanting to come on the podcast. And most of them, unfortunately, I don't like ignoring them, but they're so copy and paste and they're so not trying to have any sort of human connection. I really liked her email, and that's why I went and checked out her stuff. And I've invited her to be a guest on the podcast now because I feel like our values align. So that there is some of the ways you can kind of use your values to help you make decisions. And it really is so important in the work that we do that we stay within our mission and we stay within our values. And because then it really does help us when we're having those I'm not sure moments to decide whether we're going to collaborate, whether we're going to accept that speaking opportunity. It helps us decide, is this the right piece of content? Am I marketing services the way I want to do it? So sometimes I will think of a funny, like something, an idea will come into my head and I think it's kind of funny. And then I might create the idea and then I go to post it and something says to me, people might think you mean this, or people might react like this if you post that. And if I get that feeling, then for the most part, I don't post it, because that I feel like that's my values speaking to me somewhere. It's telling me, Niamh, okay, this doesn't align. It's telling me, Niamh, this doesn't align with what you stand for. It might have seemed kind of a little bit quirky, a little bit funny, but on the deep down, could it hurt somebody? And if it could hurt someone, then it's not going to align with my values. Now, that said, we can't not say things like evidence-based stuff, just because someone might be triggered by it. But I hope you get what I mean when I'm saying that I need to live within my values, and I do my best to do that. So I'd really love to hear about what some of your values are, or maybe what your mission statement is, or any questions that you have about designing your values or coming up with them or using them for making decisions. I'd be really interested to hear what other people's values are in their birthwork business, no matter what type of birthwork business you have, whether you're a doula, lactation consultant, an antenatal teacher, pregnancy yoga teacher, whatever it is that you do to serve pregnant or postnatal families. I'd love to hear what your core values are in your business. And if it's not something that you've looked at formally before, I really do encourage you to have a think about it, maybe start getting it down on paper, getting some ideas about what those values are, so that you can use it as that decision-making tool when you're not 100% sure about something, when something is, it's not feeling right in your body. We need to be able to figure out whether something is just fear or whether it's because it goes against our core values. And having it written down, having a real understanding of what your mission and your values are, can just really help you do that. And if you're having trouble getting your mission and your values down on paper and you'd like some more support with that, there is a lesson for it inside the Your Birth Biz membership. And just remember, your business does get simpler. It gets easier to run when it's built from the inside out. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and I can't wait to hear all about your own values. Talk to you soon. Bye.